This recent episode of the My First Million podcast has this guy, Jesse Pujji. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correct. And he talks about how price-insensitive private equity firms or other financial firms are. VC firms, hedge funds, corporate strategy teams, super price insensitive, but especially private equity. And that is a world that he has a lot of connections to and used to work in. This is a quote from that episode about the founder of CB Insights. It's told by Sean, and Sean says, this guy, he started with a PDF and he's like, he's trying to charge $500. And then he's like, the best thing that ever happened to us was my buddy was like, no. You need to charge $112,000. $112,000, not $500. Minimum $25,000 is your medium, and then have a $100,000 option. And this guy is like, dude, it's a PDF. You want me to sell a PDF for tens of thousands of dollars? Maybe hundreds of thousands? The guy's like, yeah. So they sold it and they made $300,000 a year selling this PDF. That was somebody different. The guest on the show, Jesse, he said they're selling research that would take somebody like me 15 minutes to do, and they're selling it for tens of thousands of dollars. I'm listening to the SEO research he is talking about that is part of their package, and that is really highly requested. And I'm like, this is so easy for somebody like me to do. And if you're a listener of the podcast, you're probably pretty savvy with digital marketing, or you're learning. You're definitely above average if you're listening to my show, which is about pretty nerdy marketing topics a lot of the time. Like yesterday's episode was about CTR, click-through rate manipulation within Google search. That is a nerdy marketing topic. That is deep. So if you're a listener of my show, you're probably relatively savvy, above average savvy. And if you're not, you will be soon because you're a listener. But on this episode, I want to share this idea that I had, because he says one of the hardest things about what he does is he has to have the network in order to sell to these institutions who are so price insensitive. He has to know a lot of private equity people. And actually, I know a lot of private equity people. I met them when I was doing blockchain events in New York City all the time. This was 2017, 2018. We had the biggest blockchain meetup in the world. We no longer run it because we're just doing so many other things, but we were doing blockchain events. I would say 2 a month, maybe more. And we would have so many private equity people come to our events, or I would meet them at other blockchain events because I was also very active in going to tons of other blockchain events. And I had this thought about this hack that you could do with Meetup to get your foot in the door and develop a big network within private equity, people who are very price insensitive. And that's what I'm sharing on this episode of the show. I have a lot of crazy ideas that I wish I could do. And this is one of those. When I was younger and I had less going on, I would do them. I would have a crazy idea and I would get started on it and I would do it. But now I have a lot going on, and I know that the best path is consistency and avoiding distraction. So I'm not going to get distracted. But if you want to get distracted, or maybe you're just looking for something to sink your teeth into, you could try this, especially if you like networking. But even if you don't like networking, you can do this remotely. So I gave the background. These firms are very price insensitive. If they're spending tens of millions or hundreds of millions or more on an acquisition or some kind of deal, they're going to put in a lot of money on diligence. The maths. If they are making a huge deal, they're going to spend a lot of money on due diligence. And this is part of that. If they're buying a company or taking partial ownership in a company, they want to make sure the company is worthwhile, or the market is worthwhile, or so many other things. And a good amount of the time, this has to do with digital marketing. So if you are interested in digital marketing, and again, you have some time, this is what you can do. First, I'm going to talk about how to do this if you are in a big US city, and then I'm going to talk about how to do it remotely. So, okay, big US city. You're in New York City, you're in Chicago. I'm from New York City. My brother, he's in Chicago now. We're both from New York. We've thrown tons of meetups in New York City. My brother used to live in DC. He was throwing blockchain events in DC, and then he was throwing blockchain events in Chicago. He started the blockchain meetup group, which actually I have a funny story from. I'll try to share that at the end of this episode. But here's what you do. Okay, first, if you don't know anything about private equity, just start learning about it. 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes a day. It's researching and learning. You're going to events as well. You're hanging out with people. You're not afraid to ask questions. You're learning as much as you can, as fast as you can, while also doing digital marketing. It might take you a year to get over imposter syndrome. If you're like me, when I am doing something that I don't know anything about, I actually feel imposter syndrome. I'm not a great liar and I don't enjoy it. I feel real imposter syndrome. In blockchain, it took me, because I got into blockchain and I didn't know anything about blockchain. It took me 3 months to get over imposter syndrome. But I was asking so many questions, learning as much as I could, reading so many white papers. I was really spending a lot of time learning. So it took me 3 months to get over imposter syndrome, going to events, meeting people. But if you feel imposter syndrome, it's okay. You're not alone. But here's what you do. It's very easy. Join a lot of other finance meetups. And if you can find specific private equity meetups, join those as well. I'll talk about this more, but oftentimes meetup founders will step down. So you'll be part of a meetup. The founder will step down and you can take it over and make it your meetup. And if you have an existing meetup, you can merge it with your own meetup and grow your meetup really fast that way. Or you can just take it over and then the meetup is yours. But go to events, meet people, make yourself known, just get top of mind awareness. Don't try to sell to anybody. I have an article on my site. I'll share it in the description for this episode. It's called What I Learned About Networking, going to NYC tech and business events every night for 3 years. The number one thing I learned was to get top of mind awareness and referrals and comfort, and don't try to sell. People will ask you what you do. You say what you do, and then you become their friend and they think of you or they need your services directly, but trying to sell is like the worst thing ever. So don't do that. You want to make connections. And it could take some time to build up trust, but that's okay. You might even wait a few months before creating a company and your company sells to private equity and it's research reports or something. Digital marketing research reports for private equity within whatever field of digital marketing you're most interested in. I really wish I had more time because I would totally do this. I can easily see it playing out. But so you throw weekly events and you could do it at coffee shops, you could do it wherever. Let's get together and talk about the biggest news of the week in private equity and finance. And if you don't know much, that's okay. Just ask questions and listen. I'm going to tell a secret. When I started in blockchain in 2017, I didn't know a gosh darn thing. And so I just asked people tons of questions and I shut the F up. And I was the best listener ever. And you know what happened? People really like to talk to me because people want to talk and they want someone who's really going to listen to them. And I knew I didn't have anything to contribute to the conversation because I didn't know anything about blockchain. Not at the time. I was learning. And so I just shut the F up and I listened and people really like talking to me. Everybody starts as an imposter. Everybody starts as a learner. It's all right. So you start your meetup and you just grow your meetup. Try to do meetups with other meetup groups. Other meetup groups, they want more people to go to their events. So as you're growing yours, you might be able to co-host with other groups. And then this brings more awareness to your group and your group can grow. And as you continue going to events, eventually organizers step down and you get to take over their meetups. This happens to me all the time. I see meetups that need to be taken over. I took over the New York City data analytics meetup because I was part of it when I was going to NYC tech events every night. One day I got a notification saying the organizer was stepping down. I started the New York City search engine optimization meetup group and I took it over because I figured that I could combine that with my meetup group. And that's what I did. And I would have people come to my events from the data analytics meetup group because I figured it was related enough to search engine optimization. Every week it would be my SEO meetup group combined with data analytics. And we would talk about the intersection of data analytics and SEO. This was in 2017 too. But even now, if you go to the meetup homepage and you're part of events, there's a good chance that you will see one of your meetup groups is in need of an organizer. I talk about this a lot more on episode 430 of this podcast, Hacking Backlinks with Remote Meetup Takeovers. And I wrote about it and I wrote a really great description in one of my newsletters a few weeks ago. I wrote this, I was in Vilnius, Lithuania, and I was sitting in a cafe with a view of the river that cuts through Vilnius. I was there with a delicious Americano, and I can't believe I wrote such a great newsletter just sitting there so focused. And that's what I'm going to read. I'm going to read this section about remote meetup takeovers and how you can apply this to private equity and institutions that are very price insensitive. This is what I wrote. Anybody can do this now, and it's not against the rules. On meetup.com, to have a group of over 50 people, you need a paid plan. This costs $175 a year. and over 2 times this if you get the monthly tier. So annual plan, $175 a year. That's what I have. All the time, organizers are abandoning the groups they've built because they no longer want to pay the meetup fees. When this happens, everybody in the group gets notified that they can take over the group. As of Meetup's newest update, I think even related people may see notifications within the Meetup interface too. So if you go to the Meetup interface, you can probably see notifications from groups that need organizers. I see this myself when I go to the Meetup interface. These events right now are in need of organizers. So here is the gambit. You take over groups from anywhere in the world. You pay the annual Meetup fee. You don't have to organize events. You don't even need to go to events. You rebrand the group, keep the title the same, or make it even more relevant to your niche. If you're in AI, you take over a group called NYC Prompt Engineering. You rename it NYC Generative AI. You include links to your website and key pages. The next part you either hire a virtual assistant for, or you do yourself if you have the time. Find events and groups through different event platforms, Meetup, Luma, etc., just Googling or newsletters. Gary's Guide shares some of the best tech and finance events in New York City and San Francisco. And again, you can do this remotely. Reach out to organizers in your niche in the area the Meetup is in. Tell them you'd like to co-host with them and send your members to their events. You have members because you took over a group. Of course, they're going to say yes. They want free extra distribution. Ask them to include a blurb about your group. And so now this part is more about getting backlinks. This gambit, originally, I thought of it to get backlinks, SEO backlinks that increase the domain authority of your website so you can rank for more competitive keywords. But you can do this to get awareness to your company, to your brand, to get more newsletter subscribers, to get more members to your group. So if you have a brand that sells digital marketing research reports to PE, this blurb can go out with all the events that you co-host. So you ask the organizers that you're co-hosting with to include a blurb about your group in the event's marketing language, co-hosted by the NYC Generative AI Meetup, hosted by Company Name LLC. And then there's a link to your website, companynameLLC.com, specializes in, and then you give like your broad umbrella keywords around your niche. And you do this to make it easier to rank for your keywords. Or if you're doing this play, this is your sales pitch. This part then is just your sales pitch. So here's how this comes together. You took over a group that you didn't put in the hard work to build. Your group is associated with tons of new events in your niche. Again, you don't have to attend or organize any of the events. The main organizers are doing it. Meetup lets you email everybody in your group. The addresses are obscure, but you can also collect direct emails from people who attend the events, getting emails from other people's groups. Events are, in fact, a very common way for companies to collect emails. Your brand and top-of-mind awareness grow from this. Your marketing blurb and backlinks appear in the marketing emails for the events and the landing pages, because backlinks and emails don't matter, but backlinks and landing pages actually do matter for the events. And plenty of these landing pages, they use do follow backlinks too. These pass on link juice, and that's the gambit. So you will build backlinks to your brand and get top-of-mind awareness from your brand, and you can do this remotely. Now, it's going to be easier to sell to people if you're meeting them. If people know you, they see you at events. But if you want to try to do this remotely, you still can. Anyway, I got so fired up listening to this episode of My First Million. I actually was also thinking about making videos on my TikTok and Instagram. I just hit 100,000 followers on Instagram today. Crazy. I can hardly believe it. It's so wild to me. I started making videos November 1st, 2022. And I'm just like, let me see. I didn't know anything. I'm like, let me see what happens. And so I had this idea that I can make digital marketing videos for private equity people, a few of these videos. And I think my distribution is good enough that a bunch of these videos can pop off. And then I can have a super expensive research report that is sold as part of that. So that's something that I might do in the future. But I also immediately had this thought, oh yeah, I could run meetups like I've always done to create a huge network of private equity people and people at top finance companies because I've done this before. And then my other thought was, yeah, but I don't have time for this and I'm not going to get distracted with more stuff, even though it's a great idea. So what am I going to do instead? I'm going to share it on this podcast. That's what I got for you. Actually, I have a few more things for you, a few more treats. The Chicago blockchain story. This is what it is. I have two more things. I want to share the Chicago blockchain story and then just an easy way to get backlinks, which has decreased in price. Chicago blockchain story. My brother started the Washington, D.C. blockchain meetup group. He moved to Chicago, rebranded it as the Chicago blockchain meetup group. It got to over 1,000 members. He was pretty well known. He got a job at Discover Card doing project management, and eventually he just stopped going to the events. He took on an organizer who said they were going to keep running events. They didn't. My brother forgot about them. And a few days ago, they just spammed our group with an ad for their company without actually having done any work for our group. So we removed them as an organizer, but everybody in the meetup got this ad for their company. I thought that was a pretty funny thing that happened. And then the other thing, I've talked on this show and in my videos in the past about how I used featured.com to get, I think it was 20 backlinks in a month. Featured.com lets you respond to journalists who need expert quotes. If you're an expert or you can give a quote in a certain industry, journalists need your quote. They take your quote and then they give an SEO backlink most of the time to your company or website. When I did this and I got around 20 backlinks, maybe a bit more in a month, I paid $99 a month for the service. And now, several months later, the monthly price is half that. I was looking at it today. It's $49 a month. I paid $99 a month. Now it's $49. And if you join it and you don't pay, you still get 3 free responses every month. And you can buy individual credits to respond to journalists. And so they have this new pricing plan. And I got such good results with featured.com. I thought, yeah, this might be valuable to some of the people who listen. All right, that's all I have for you on this episode of the show. This is episode 453 of my daily digital marketing podcast. I'm starting to lose count because I've done so many shows. Thank you so much for watching. If you are watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye now.